All right, ready to dive into the world of cryptocurrency compliance.
Sounds good.
It's kind of like the Wild West, you know, digital gold rush.
Yeah.
And the sheriff is still trying to figure out how to enforce the law.
Yeah, what's so fascinating about it is, it's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, right?
Yeah.
Decentralized finance with these traditional regulations constantly playing catch up.
Right. So instead of saloons, we've got the blockchain
Exactly.
and Bitcoin instead of six shooters.
Yeah.
But the stakes are pretty high.
Oh,
We're talking of billions, right?
precisely. And that's why compliance is it's so crucial. It's like the bedrock, trust and stability
Yeah.
in this landscape that's, it can be pretty volatile otherwise.
Right, right.
I mean, think of it this way. Without a really strong, robust compliance framework, you wouldn't have institutional investors really jumping in.
Yeah.
And mainstream adoption would be, a long way off.
Yeah. It'd be like building a skyscraper without a foundation. It's exactly
You're
right.
going to get very far.
Now, to really kind of get into the complexities here, we need to look at how different regions are tackling this.
Yeah.
So, for instance, the European Union, they're aiming for more of a unified approach with their markets in crypto assets regulation.
Right. Yeah.
MiCA.
Yeah.
So it's like they're creating a single rule book for the entire EU.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, to have everything streamlined within their borders.
Right.
But what about the U.S.? I mean, they're a pretty big player in the crypto world.
Huge player.
Yeah.
Yeah, the U.S. is relying more on these existing frameworks from the Securities and Exchange Commission,
Okay.
the SEC. Now, this approach kind of creates more of a patchwork of regulations, which can be confusing for businesses, especially if they're operating across borders.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a compliance nightmare, like you're navigating a maze.
You got it.
Different set of rules at every turn.
And it's further complicated by the, global nature of cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So a single transaction could originate in one country, pass through multiple exchanges across various jurisdictions,
Oh, wow.
end up in a wallet on the other side of the world.
Okay. My head's spinning already.
I can imagine.
How do you even untangle this web of regulations and risks?
Well, one of the most pressing concerns, I think, is money laundering and terrorist financing.
Yeah.
So the anonymity offered by some cryptocurrencies can be a double-edged sword.
Right. Well, like Monero, Zcash.
Exactly.
Those are the ones that kind of try to mask the details, right?
Precisely. They use that, advanced cryptography, and that can appeal to privacy advocates,
Yeah.
but it also makes them attractive to bad actors, They're trying to move funds under the radar.
Right. So it's a constant cat and mouse game then
It really is.
between the compliance officers and the people trying to exploit the system.
Yeah, so it's like a high-tech version of a spy thriller almost.
Right.
But, how do they actually trace this digital cash?
Yeah. I mean, isn't the blockchain transparent?
Well, it is for many cryptocurrencies, but the privacy coins, they throw a wrench in the works.
Right.
So that's where these know your customer, the KYC procedures, become really critical.
Right.
They involve verifying customer identities and monitoring transactions for anything that looks suspicious.
So it's kind of like when you open up a bank account.
Precisely.
They ask for your ID, proof of address.
Exactly. But it's all happening online.
Yeah, of course, right.
And it goes beyond that basic information. I mean, compliance officers might use government-issued IDs, facial recognition software, and even, sophisticated blockchain analytics tools.
Wow, that's pretty high tech.
It is.
Are there any examples of how these risks have played out? Any cautionary tales?
Oh, absolutely. Back in 2020, the KuCoin exchange, they suffered a massive hack,
Oh, yeah.
lost over $200 million in various cryptocurrencies.
200 million.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is. And, it sent shockwaves through the industry, and it really highlighted that, even for established platforms, they can be vulnerable to cyber attacks and money laundering.
So what was the takeaway?
Well, I think it underscored the need for robust security measures and just constant vigilance in the crypto space.
Right.
It's a stark reminder that no system is foolproof.
Right.
And these bad actors are constantly looking for weaknesses to exploit.
So besides the threat of cybercrime and money laundering, what other compliance headaches are out there?
Well, let's not forget about taxes.
Oh, right, taxes.
Even in the digital realm, you can't escape the tax man.
Yeah.
And how taxation works with crypto, well, it's a complex beast.
Yeah.
The rules can vary wildly across the globe.
Right. Yeah, it seems like it would be incredibly difficult to keep track of everything, especially with how much the prices fluctuate.
You're telling me. in many countries, it's treated as property. So every
Mm-hmm.
time you sell or trade it, you might be triggering a taxable event. Imagine trying to keep track of capital gains and losses for every single Bitcoin trade.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare. So even if you're just, dabbling,
Yeah.
you've got to be meticulous about record keeping
Right.
for tax purposes.
Okay, so we've got money laundering, cybersecurity threats, tax complexities. What else?
Well, another crucial aspect is custody.
Hmm.
How do you securely hold these digital assets?
Right.
Because unlike traditional finance, where you might rely on a bank,
Yeah.
with crypto, you're often responsible for securing your own digital wallet.
So if you lose your phone, your crypto's gone.
That's the risk.
Oh, wow.
So understanding how those digital wallets work
Yeah.
and practicing good security hygiene is paramount.
Right.
I mean, there are different types, some more secure than others,
Right.
and each come with their own set of challenges.
It is like the Wild West.
Yeah.
Everyone's responsible for their own security.
Yeah. So are there any safeguards to protect people from losing their crypto? Absolutely. There are things like multi-signature wallets,
Okay.
where multiple parties need to approve a transaction before it goes through.
Ah, okay.
So you're adding like an extra layer of security there.
So like multiple locks on your digital vault.
Exactly.
That's
But
good.
what about all these scams and rug pulls you hear about?
Oh, that's a major area of concern as well.
Yeah.
Because the space is relatively new and unregulated.
Right.
It's ripe for these fraudsters.
Yeah.
They prey on unsuspecting investors.
Yeah.
Everything from Ponzi schemes disguised as legitimate investments to rug pulls.
I mean, how do you navigate this minefield?
Well, due diligence is key.
Yeah.
Before you invest in any project,
Yeah.
you've got to do your research.
Mm-hmm.
Look for red flags.
Yeah.
Like unrealistic promises of high returns.
Right.
Anonymous development teams,
Yeah.
lack of transparency in how the project operates.
So if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Exactly.
Okay.
A healthy dose of skepticism.
It is essential in the crypto world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where compliance officers play a vital role.
Yeah.
They're educating investors, setting up safeguards to prevent fraud.
So it's empowering investors to make informed decisions,
Absolutely.
not just enforcing the rules.
No, it's not. And speaking of risks, I think we have to talk about market volatility.
Oh, yeah, the crypto roller coaster.
Exactly.
Bitcoin goes up 10%, down 15%, up 20%.
In the same week.
Yeah. How do you manage that?
Well, it all comes down to understanding and communicating the inherent risks of this market.
Mm-hmm.
So compliance officers need to ensure that investors are fully aware of the potential for gains,
Yeah.
but also losses.
Yeah.
They need to be transparent about the fact that past performance is never a guarantee of future returns.
So set realistic expectations. Make sure they don't get caught up in the hype.
Precisely.
It's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, it's not. And this is especially important in the context of consumer protection. Regulators are increasingly focused on ensuring that investors are treated fairly
Yeah.
and the risks associated with these investments, that those are clearly disclosed.
Right, so it's not just about preventing fraud. It's making sure that everyday investors aren't taken advantage of
You got it.
in this new world of finance.
It's about striking a balance,
Yeah.
between fostering innovation and ensuring investor protection.
Right.
And compliance is the bridge.
Yeah, this is starting to make a lot more sense. Even if you're not deeply involved in crypto, I think understanding these basic principles,
Right.
you can really grasp why it's such a big issue.
Exactly. It highlights that crucial role that compliance officers play in navigating this complex landscape.
Right, so we've covered money laundering, cybersecurity, taxes, market volatility. What else?
Well, one of the biggest challenges, I think, stems from the global nature of crypto. We've talked about how this complicates things from a regulatory standpoint, but it also creates, a whole host of cross-border issues.
Like, what? Give me an example.
Well, think about it this way. A cryptocurrency, it could be considered a commodity in one country, a security in another,
Right.
and completely illegal in a third.
Yeah, okay.
So compliance officers need to be, hyper aware of these international regulations and how they impact their business.
So you can't just know the rules in your own backyard.
No, you need that global perspective.
Okay.
And that's where things can get really tricky.
Right.
For example, while the EU's MiCA regulation It aims for this harmonized approach to crypto regulation
Right.
across the block.
Yeah.
It's still unclear how this will actually interact with existing regulations
Mm-hmm.
in those individual member states.
Right.
And then you have the U.S., they're taking more of a fragmented approach.
Okay.
Different agencies, like the SEC and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC,
Right.
they're issuing guidance on specific aspects
Mm.
of crypto regulation. And this can create a lot of confusion as they try to comply with multiple, sometimes conflicting sets of rules.
Yeah, okay. I can see how compliance is a big deal here.
Yeah,
It's like trying to solve a puzzle where the pieces are always changing shape.
that's a great analogy.
So we've navigated the regulatory maze, explored the risks,
Right.
the money laundering, the cybersecurity, the taxes, custody, and security. But what about the human element? How do compliance officers actually protect investors from these scams and fraud?
That's a crucial part of the job.
Yeah,
Remember those rug pulls and Ponzi schemes we talked about?
right.
Compliance officers are on the front lines preventing those kinds of scams from happening.
So how do they do that? Do they have crystal ball?
I wish. It all starts with thorough due diligence.
Okay.
So when a new crypto project pops up,
Mm-hmm.
compliance officers need to carefully vet it,
Okay.
make sure it's legitimate, scrutinize the project's white paper, verify the developers, assess the risk profile.
So they're kind of like detectives, trying to sniff out the trouble before investors get hurt.
Great way to put it. They're also responsible for educating investors about the risks.
Yeah.
So this could be anything from creating educational materials, hosting webinars, or even just having one-on-one conversations
Mm-hmm.
with clients.
So again, it's empowering them
It is, yeah.
to make their own decisions, not just, laying down the law.
Absolutely. And that's where transparency comes in.
Okay.
So compliance officers need to advocate for that greater transparency in the crypto industry,
Yeah.
both from a regulatory standpoint
Mm-hmm.
and from the companies that are operating in this space.
Right. So shining a light on the dark corners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why compliance is so crucial to the long-term success of the crypto industry.
Yeah.
Building trust, protecting investors, and just ensuring that this exciting technology is used responsibly.
Yeah, and let's not forget about the people involved too, right? The people working in this field, they're under a lot of pressure
They are.
to keep up with everything that's changing.
It's a demanding job.
Yeah, it sounds like being a compliance officer in this world is not for the faint of heart.
No, it's not. It takes, a special blend of skills, knowledge, and you have to be adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
Comfortable with ambiguity, able to think critically, always willing to learn.
So what does it take to succeed in this role?
Well, you need to be passionate,
Mm-hmm.
about the industry and its potential
Yeah.
to revolutionize the way we think about finance.
Right.
You need to be a quick learner, able to stay ahead of the curve.
So it's not just about knowing the rules, it's about understanding the technology behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to be a strong communicator,
Yeah.
able to, translate complex regulations into plain language.
Right.
And I think you also need a healthy dose of skepticism,
Yeah.
a keen eye for spotting red flags.
So it's like being a detective, a teacher, and a tech enthusiast,
Mhm.
all rolled into one.
You got it. And, don't forget about ethics and integrity,
Right.
because as a compliance officer, you're the guardian of your company's reputation, the
Yeah.
protector of its customers.
So it's a big responsibility, but also very rewarding.
It is
Yeah.
a chance to be part of something truly groundbreaking,
Yeah.
but it's not without its challenges.
Right. Like what are some of the biggest hurdles?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is just keeping up with the pace of change.
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving.
Right.
New technologies, regulations, risks emerging all the time.
So it's like trying to hit a moving target.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why continuous learning is so crucial.
Right.
Always reading, going to conferences, networking,
Right.
to stay on top of everything.
So it's not a job for someone who's afraid of a little hard work.
No. But for the right person, it can be incredibly rewarding.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Well, this has been really eye-opening.
Good, I'm glad.
Kind of a deep dive into the world of cryptocurrency compliance.
It's complex, it's challenging,
It is.
but full of opportunity.
Yeah. And it's clear that compliance officers play a vital role
Absolutely.
in making sure the industry develops responsibly
They do.
and that investors are protected.
Yeah.
So, as we kind of wrap up this part one of our deep dive,
Okay.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, approach the crypto world with a healthy dose of enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
but also caution.
What do you mean? How do you balance those two things?
Well, it's great to be excited about the potential,
Yeah.
but you need to be aware of the risks.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the hype blind you to the potential for, scams,
Right.
fraud,
Yeah.
market volatility.
Right. So do your research, ask questions. Don't be afraid to walk away if it sounds too good to be true.
Exactly. And if you're thinking about really getting involved in the industry,
Yeah.
make sure you really understand the regulatory landscape, the
Yeah.
compliance requirements.
Don't just jump in.
Don't just jump in, no.
Learn the ropes.
Learn the ropes.
Play by the rules.
Play by the rules.
Mm.
Remember, compliance is not just about avoiding penalties.
Mm-hmm.
It's about building a sustainable and trustworthy ecosystem.
Okay, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
I know it's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Good.
I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
But don't worry, this is just the beginning.
Stay tuned.
We got a lot more to explore, so stay tuned for part 2.
We do.
We'll delve even deeper into these challenges and opportunities.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be back soon.
See you then. One of the things that it always amazes me about the crypto world is the sheer diversity of players involved.
Yeah.
It's not just tech-savvy individuals and
Right.
those looking for anonymity anymore.
Right.
We're seeing these institutional investors,
Yeah.
major corporations,
Yeah.
even governments, dipping their toes into these crypto waters.
It's true. It seems like everybody's getting in on the action these days.
Yeah.
But how does this influx of institutional players kind of impact compliance?
Well, it definitely adds a whole new layer of complexity, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to apply these, traditional financial regulations that were designed for these brick and mortar institutions to this decentralized global network that's constantly evolving.
Right. So it's not just keeping up with the technology.
He's not just the technology.
It's understanding how all these different players
Exactly.
with their different motivations and risk appetites are all kind of interacting
It's this interplay.
with each other
Yeah.
and with this existing regulatory framework.
Precisely. And that's where the role of the compliance officer, it becomes even more critical. They're the bridge between these two worlds,
Yeah.
the traditional financial world and this new frontier.
Right, right.
They need to be fluent in both languages, so to speak. It's like they need to be masters of diplomacy as well as regulation.
That's a good way to put it.
But how do they even keep track of all these different players and their activity?
All technology plays a big role.
Yeah.
There are sophisticated software tools
Okay.
that can help them monitor transactions like in real time,
Wow.
identify suspicious activity,
Okay.
even trace the flow of funds across borders.
So it's like having a digital detective on your side,
That's a great analogy.
constantly scanning for any signs of trouble.
Yeah, and these tools are becoming even more important
Yeah.
as the crypto world becomes, even more interconnected and the volume just grows exponentially.
Yeah.
But you have to remember,
Yeah.
technology alone isn't enough.
Right.
It still takes that human expertise,
Right.
judgment, understanding of the risks
Right. Right.
to interpret that data and make those informed decisions.
So it's a dynamic partnership between the tools and the human intelligence.
Yeah, it's a combination. Seems like you need a pretty unique set of skills to thrive in this environment.
I do, absolutely.
Yeah.
Analytical, tech-savvy, excellent communication skills, and you got to stay calm under pressure.
Yeah. But, besides preventing bad things from happening, it seems like compliance can also be a force for innovation
It can.
and growth
For sure.
in the industry.
How so?
Yeah, how so? I mean, I always think of compliance as this necessary evil
I understand that.
that slows things down and adds complexity.
Well, I mean, think about it this way.
Yeah.
If investors and businesses don't trust the crypto market,
Yeah.
they're much less likely to participate, right?
Right.
They need that assurance that their investments are protected,
Yeah.
that the playing field is level.
So you're saying robust compliance can actually build trust,
It can, absolutely.
attract more participants,
Mm,
lead to a more vibrant crypto ecosystem.
exactly.
Okay, that's interesting.
That's where the concept of compliance by design comes in.
Compliance by design. I like that. Tell me more.
It's the idea that compliance, it shouldn't be an afterthought,
Right.
something you bolt on at the end.
Yeah.
It should be, baked into the foundation.
Right. Right from the get-go.
right from the beginning, from those initial design and development phases.
So like building a house on a strong foundation
Perfect analogy.
rather than trying to prop it up later.
Exactly. And this approach is becoming even more important
Yeah.
as you see regulators taking a more, proactive approach.
Right.
They want to see that companies are taking it seriously from the beginning.
Right. Right.
And that they have, robust systems in place.
So it's not just checking boxes.
It's not just checking boxes, it's demonstrating a genuine commitment.
To ethical behavior.
Exactly. And this can give companies a competitive advantage, Investors, customers.
Right.
They're more likely to trust those businesses that
Yeah.
have a strong compliance culture.
Right. So it's not just a cost of doing business, it's a valuable asset.
It can be, yeah.
That enhances your reputation, attracts investors.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that's been in the news a lot lately.
Okay.
The environmental impact
Yeah.
of crypto.
Big topic.
I've heard a lot about this, something about Bitcoin mining consuming as much energy as a small country. Is that true?
It's a complex issue,
Yeah.
but the concerns they're definitely valid.
Okay.
The energy consumption of some of these proof-of-work cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin,
Right.
it is significant.
Yeah.
And it's attracting attention from both environmental groups and regulators.
So how does this environmental concern, how does that play into the whole compliance equation?
Well, it raises questions about sustainability, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
If a cryptocurrency requires, massive amounts of energy to mine,
Yeah.
is it really a viable solution for the future?
Right.
What are the implications for climate change?
Right.
Global energy consumption?
Yeah, those are big questions.
Big questions. And compliance officers, they're starting to grapple with this,
Yeah.
Some are advocating for the adoption of more energy-efficient consensus mechanisms,
Okay.
like proof of stake,
Mm-hmm.
while others are exploring things like carbon offsets and other sustainability initiatives.
So it's not just about preventing financial crime and protecting investors.
It's broader than that.
It's thinking about the big picture, the environment, and social impact.
It is, and that's where, ESG comes in, environmental, social, and governance.
Right, right.
And more investors are looking for companies
Yeah.
that are committed to these things.
Sustainability, ethical business practices.
Exactly. So if you're a crypto company and you want to attract those investors
Yeah.
and gain that competitive edge,
Right,
you need to show that you're not just making money.
right.
You're doing good
Doing good for the world.
for the world, exactly.
Okay. So we've got this global nature, strong compliance culture, environmental considerations. But there's one more area I want to talk about before we move on.
Okay.
Sanctions compliance.
Yeah.
What exactly does that mean in the crypto world?
So sanctions compliance,
Mm-hmm.
it's a particularly challenging area
Yeah.
because governments around the world, they use sanctions to restrict trade,
Right.
financial transactions
Right.
with certain countries, individuals, organizations.
Right. And because crypto is so decentralized,
Exactly.
borderless.
It can be really tough to enforce these things effectively.
Yeah, it's like trying to impose traditional geographic borders
Yeah,
on a system that was built to transcend them.
exactly. So how do you even begin to tackle that?
Yeah.
Well, it starts with, a deep understanding of the sanctions landscape,
Okay.
which is constantly changing, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
So they need to know which countries, individuals, organizations are currently subject to sanctions.
Right. But how do they keep track of all that information?
Well, they rely on specialized software and databases that are constantly being updated,
Right.
with the latest information.
Okay.
They also need to stay on top of any changes to the regulations, which can happen really quickly,
Right.
in response to geopolitical events.
So it's a never-ending game of catch-up.
It can feel like that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And the stakes are high
Right.
because if a company is found to be violating sanctions,
Yeah.
it could face huge fines,
Yeah.
reputational damage,
Right.
even legal action.
Definitely not something you want to mess around with.
No.
So how do companies make sure they're staying on the right side of things?
Well, training and education are key.
Okay.
You got to make sure everyone in the company,
Yeah.
not just the compliance team,
Right.
understands those rules and how to comply.
Right.
That means knowing how to identify red flags,
Right.
who to report to
Yeah.
if something seems fishy.
So it's about creating a culture of compliance,
Yeah.
not just having a team handle it. throughout the whole organization.
Throughout the organization, yeah.
And it goes beyond internal compliance,
It
right?
does, yeah.
Companies also need to be aware of the risks posed by their customers
Mm-hmm.
and business partners.
Yeah, can you give me an example?
Yeah, like for instance.
Sure. Let's say you have a crypto exchange and they're onboarding a new customer.
Okay.
They need to do their due diligence,
Right.
Make sure that customer is not located in a sanctioned country,
Right.
not on a sanctions list,
Mm.
not engaging in activities that would violate sanctions that
Yeah.
could mean verifying their identity, address, even the source of funds.
Mhm.
And then they need to monitor the customer's transactions, right?
Right, for any red flags.
What any red flags, exactly.
Okay, so it's this multi-layered approach
It is.
to compliance,
Yeah,
proactive measures, and ongoing monitoring.
precisely. And it's getting more complex,
Yeah.
as the crypto world evolves and those regulations shift.
Right.
But getting this right,
Yeah.
it's crucial for maintaining the company's reputation,
Right.
avoiding legal issues, and really contributing to global security.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Right.
Global reach, the need for a strong compliance culture,
Yeah.
environmental impact, sanctions compliance.
All right.
But there's one more I want to touch on before we wrap up this section.
Sure.
Decentralized finance, DeFi.
Ah, DeFi, yes. The Wild West of the crypto world, some might say.
Right, it does feel like a bit of a free-for-all out there.
Yeah.
Innovation is happening so fast.
Absolutely.
But how does this rapid evolution of DeFi
Mhm.
impact the compliance landscape?
Right.
Is it even possible to regulate a system
Yeah.
that's designed to be decentralized and autonomous?
That is the million-dollar question.
It is.
DeFi platforms
Yeah.
built on blockchain technology,
Right.
often operating without any central authority,
Right.
they present a unique set of challenges for regulators and compliance professionals.
So if there's no central entity in charge,
Right.
who's responsible for making sure everything is done by the book?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That's the dilemma that regulators are grappling with,
Yeah.
Some people argue that DeFi platforms should be subject to the same regulations as traditional financial institutions.
Right.
Others believe that a more hands-off approach is needed.
To avoid stifling innovation.
Exactly. So it's a bit of a gray area.
It is.
No clear consensus on how to approach this.
Right. And that's what makes compliance in this space
Yeah,
so challenging, right? I mean, you're navigating uncharted waters here,
you are.
facing a whole new set of risks and uncertainties.
Absolutely. So what are some of the unique risks?
Yeah, what are they?
Well, there's anonymity, for one thing.
Right.
Many DeFi platforms allow users to transact pseudo-anonymously, which
Yeah.
makes it incredibly difficult
Yeah.
to identify and track suspicious activity.
Right.
That's a huge challenge for those AML efforts,
So it's the money laundering problem we discussed earlier.
It is
By amplified.
amplified, yeah. And then you've got code vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
These DeFi platforms
Yeah.
often built on this complex open source code,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be vulnerable
Wow.
to hacks and exploits.
Yeah, and we've seen it happen, right?
We've seen several high-profile hacks and millions of dollars lost.
With high risk, high reward,
It is, yeah.
where innovation and vulnerability kind of go hand in hand.
They do. That's why it's so important for compliance officers to really understand these risks
Yeah.
and to have the right strategies in place.
Right, to mitigate them.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
I mean, DeFi also has this incredible potential,
Right.
to revolutionize the way we think about finance.
Yeah.
Making it more accessible, transparent, efficient.
So it's a balancing act again.
It is. It's a balancing act.
Fostering innovation, protecting investors,
Exactly.
same as we've seen in these other areas of the crypto world.
And compliance plays a key role in striking that balance.
Right.
But compliance in this context, it's not just about blindly following the rules.
Right.
It's about understanding the spirit of those rules
Yeah.
and applying them in a way.
Right, that makes sense.
That makes sense given the unique characteristics
Yeah.
of this space.
So being adaptable,
Yes.
creative,
Yes.
willing to embrace these new approaches.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so exciting,
Yeah.
It's constantly evolving, which means that there's always something new to learn,
Right.
new challenges to overcome.
Yeah, this has been really insightful.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm starting to see why compliance is such a hot topic
Yeah.
in this world,
It is.
and why compliance officers are in such high demand.
High demand. Yeah.
It's a challenging but crucial role.
It is. It really is.
So if someone's listening and thinking about a career in this, particularly in this DeFi space,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give them?
I'd say go for it.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but it's incredibly rewarding. Just be ready to work hard, learn constantly,
Right.
and think outside the box.
So embrace the chaos.
Embrace the challenge and the opportunity.
Dive in head first.
Well, maybe not head first.
But definitely be prepared for the ride.
Be prepared. This is a field where you can really shape the future of finance.
That's great advice, I think, for anybody involved in crypto.
Yeah.
Whether you're a compliance officer, investor, or just, somebody who's curious, this is a rapidly evolving space.
It is.
The only way to stay ahead of the curve is to be constantly learning, adapting, challenging conventional thinking.
Absolutely.
Well, we've covered a lot today. Global nature compliance, the DeFi complexities, sanctions compliance. But before we wrap up, I want to just acknowledge, the human element of all this.
Yeah.
The people in compliance, they're often the unsung heroes.
They are behind the scenes.
Working diligently, behind the scenes to make sure things run smoothly.
Yep.
Businesses are operating ethically. Investors are protected.
They're the ones building that foundation for a more trustworthy and sustainable crypto ecosystem.
Yeah. So let's give a shout out to all those compliance officers out there.
Yes.
Working hard to keep the crypto world safe and secure.
Absolutely.
You are the backbone.
Hear, hear.
All right. That brings us to the end of part 2.
Okay.
And our deep dive into the world of cryptocurrency compliance.
It's been a journey.
We've explored a lot of complex, challenging topics.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we're not done yet.
There's more to come.
Stay tuned for part 3.
Yes.
We'll shift our focus to the future of crypto regulation.
The future?
And what it means for businesses, investors, and the global financial system.
Looking forward to it.
We'll be back soon.
See you then.
Okay, so we've journeyed through this wild west of crypto compliance.
Yeah.
Explored the challenges, the players, this ever-changing landscape.
It's a wild ride.
It's a wild ride. But let's grab our crystal ball, so to speak.
Okay.
And
I like it.
gaze into the future.
All right.
What trends and developments might shape this next chapter of crypto regulation?
Well, predicting the future is always tricky,
It is.
especially in a field like this.
Right.
But I think there are some interesting signals out there that suggest a move towards greater international cooperation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, crypto transcends borders.
Exactly.
So why should the rules be confined to national boundaries?
Right. I mean, are we talking about a global regulatory body for crypto?
Not quite a global body,
Okay.
but we're seeing organizations like the Financial Action Task Force, FATF,
Right.
taking a more leading role.
Yeah.
They're developing these global standards
Right.
for combating money laundering and terrorist financing in this space.
Okay.
So it's like creating a common language, a framework,
A common playbook?
across different jurisdictions.
Yeah. I mean, so instead of this patchwork of conflicting regulations, we're moving towards a more harmonized system.
Yeah, exactly.
That's got to be good news for compliance officers who are juggling all these rule books.
Right.
But it's not just about harmonizing the regulations. It's also about fostering collaboration, information sharing.
Okay.
We're seeing more cross-border partnerships between regulators, law enforcement agencies, even private companies in the crypto space.
So it's like this global network of crypto guardians all working together.
I like that.
Protect investors, prevent illicit activity, ensure the integrity of the market.
You need that kind of international cooperation
Yeah.
to really tackle these transnational issues,
Money laundering.
Right, money laundering, sanctions evasion.
Cybercrime.
Cybercrime, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got international cooperation on the rise, which is good.
It is.
But what about investor protection?
Yeah.
What measures are being taken to safeguard, everyday investors?
Right.
Because more and more people are entering this market.
Absolutely.
I mean, investor protection is definitely moving up the agenda.
It is.
Regulators are recognizing that this is not just a niche playground anymore.
It's not.
For tech-savvy early adopters, I mean, everyday investors are participating now.
They are.
And they need to be protected.
I need to be protected.
So what specific measures are being taken to kind of enhance that protection?
Well, there's this big push for clearer disclosure requirements.
Okay.
So investors can really make informed decisions.
Based on solid information.
Based on good information, right.
Yeah.
Transparency about the risks. There's also this focus on strengthening those KYC and AML procedures.
Right, to prevent fraud.
Exactly, prevent fraud, money laundering.
Yeah.
And we're seeing this move towards regulating those crypto exchanges.
Okay.
Make sure they meet certain standards.
Security, transparency, accountability.
Precise.
So making the whole market more transparent, accountable,
Yes,
and
sir.
ultimately safer for everybody.
That's the goal.
Right. And that's good to hear.
And this is coming from both sides. You've got regulators, but you also have those responsible players within the industry
Yeah.
who understand that building trust, it's essential.
Long-term success.
Long-term success, exactly.
Yeah. So we've got this global cooperation, investor protection, regulated exchanges.
Right.
Are there any other major trends on the horizon we should be watching?
Oh, absolutely. One that's generating a lot of buzz
Okay.
and some uncertainty
Okay.
is the rise of central bank digital currencies.
CBDCs.
CBDCs, yeah.
Right. Everybody's talking about this, the digital dollar, euro.
A digital yuan.
Yeah. It seems like every country is exploring this.
Yeah.
But how do they fit into this existing landscape?
Right.
And what impact will they have on compliance?
Well, that's a big question.
It is.
And the answer is going to depend on how individual countries decide to design these things,
Right.
implement them.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, CBDCs, they're going to have a huge impact
Wow.
on how we think about money, finance, regulation.
So are they a threat to existing cryptocurrencies?
That's the question, right?
Or could they actually complement each other?
It's too early to say for sure.
Okay.
But some people believe that, they could actually coexist,
Yeah.
each serving different purposes, meeting different needs.
Right.
So CBDCs might be used for those, everyday transactions,
Yeah.
government initiatives,
Okay.
while cryptocurrencies could continue to thrive in those areas like decentralized finance, cross-border payments.
So it's not necessarily this like winner take all.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But from a compliance perspective,
Yeah.
CBDCs, they present both opportunities and challenges. On the
Okay.
one hand,
Right.
it might be easier for authorities to track transactions,
Mm.
prevent illicit activities, enforce sanctions.
Yeah.
But there are also these concerns about privacy, right?
Oh, right.
Government control
Yeah.
that need to be addressed.
So it's just adding another layer of complexity.
It is, but that seems to be the nature of this world.
It does, yeah.
Constant change, adaptation.
Right. Well, to sum up our little glimpse into the future here,
Okay.
the key themes, it sounds like, are greater international cooperation,
Yeah.
enhanced investor protection,
Mm-hmm.
the emergence of these regulated exchanges,
Right.
and then this looming question mark of CBDCs.
That's a good summary, yeah. And while the future is, still being written,
Of course.
one thing's for certain, compliance is going to play a huge role in shaping it.
Before we wrap up completely,
Okay.
any final words of wisdom?
Sure, yeah. If there's one message I hope people take away from this,
Yeah.
it's that the crypto world, it's not this lawless frontier. It's a complex ecosystem.
Yeah.
It has its own rules, risks, opportunities.
And those rules are constantly evolving.
Exactly. So whether you're an investor, a business owner, or just, someone who's curious,
Yeah.
stay informed,
Yeah.
be aware of those potential pitfalls
Mm-hmm.
and approach the space with a good mix of enthusiasm and caution.
So don't be afraid to dive in, but just make sure you've got the knowledge and the awareness to navigate it all.
There's so much potential.
There is.
But you got to proceed with both eyes open.
Well said. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise.
My pleasure.
It's been enlightening.
Good. I'm glad.
And to all our listeners,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us
Thanks for listening.
on this deep dive into the world of crypto compliance.
It's been a journey.
We hope you learned something new,
Yeah.
gained a fresh perspective,
Mm-hmm.
feeling a bit more equipped
Yeah.
to navigate this exciting,
Yeah.
sometimes bewildering
It is.
world of cryptocurrency.
Stay curious, stay informed,
Yes.
and as always, stay compliant.
We'll see you next time.